I have decided something. What have you decided? I have decided
that
when we're born, we have a mommy and daddy, right? And then when we grow up and get married, we have children of our own. And then our children grow up and get married and have children. And so on and so on. So it's very important and very fun also to...
Good day, everybody. Happy Tuesday. This is Miranda, and you're listening to Interesting Sex. Today, I have a really cool guest. His name is Will Havoc. He's an adult entertainer living in Vegas. So, yes, adult entertainer. He makes videos that include penetration, and he gets penetrated and penetrates. So he does it all. And not only is it rad that we get to talk about sex on the porn set, but he also has a really wild sex at home. So we're going to talk all sorts of things: fisting, submission, dominance, queer, lots of things. So we're super happy you're here. Check him out on Instagram. He is WXHX, and on Twitter, he is Will Havoc XXX. So let's just go ahead and get the party started. Let's open our ears, our hearts, and our holes and give a very warm welcome to Will Havoc.
Hello.
Hi, Will.
How's it going?
Good. It's Miranda calling. How's it going?
It's good. Good.
Nice to talk to you today.
You too. Thanks for having me.
I've been really excited to talk to you.
Yeah, this will be a fun chat.
Yeah, I think it will too. First of all, let's just get started right away. And how about you tell us who you are, how you identify as a human, how you identify sexually. Just tell me, who are you on this planet?
I am Will Havoc. The identification part is it's sort of funny for me to like pick one, because I can't say that I am totally straight, but I can't really say that I'm bi either. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about that as the show goes on, but I guess I identify as queer because I'm sort of somewhere in the middle, I guess.
And you're a male.
Correct.
So what is it that you do for a living?
So I produce and perform in mostly like BDSM and fetish pornography.
Neat. Are you consider yourself to be a porn star?
Yeah, I guess for lack of a better term, yeah.
I think people don't really use that term very much anymore, maybe because there's so many.
It's kind of, I feel like it's sort of an antiquated idea in a sense, because the whole porn world is kind of a different landscape these days than it was 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, because before there were like movie stars, there were basically porn stars, and now there's like so much porn. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that, that the internet and technology have evolved such that almost anybody, if they want to make their own porn and sell it on some kind of platform, they can.
Yeah. Okay, so you do mostly fetish and BDSM porn.
Correct.
Okay, and what kind of stuff do you get to do?
So the beginning of my career, I did mostly submissive. I was mostly in a submissive role in most of the scenes that I did. That was mostly like femdom, so I would be submissive to a cis woman or a trans woman. That's still a big chunk of what I do, but that's not all I do. I do, like, the industry word for it is boy girl, which is what it sounds like. It's just P and V sex kind of stuff, which I do. Like, it's fun. It's fun. I like it.
I've never heard that before. P and V sex.
Yeah, a lot of fetish people call that vanilla sex.
I didn't know penis and vagina sex was considered vanilla.
Well, it's the heteronormative standard, so that's what a lot of people refer to it as who don't necessarily have sex that way.
Right. I noticed when I was looking through your Instagram. Tell everybody your Instagram real quick so they can go look at you and see how handsome you are when they know what you look like as
thanks.
we talk.
It's WXHX. Although my Twitter, if people want to look at my Twitter, is Will Havoc XXX.
Okay. So I saw on your Instagram that you were in a film called Dirty Grandpa No. 4.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I just love that you were in a movie called Dirty Grandpa No. 4.
That was for Burning Angel. Joanna Angel, who is one of the owners, and her writing is very funny and sort of campy, and it's very silly, but it's fun,
And who did you get to play in Dirty Grandpa?
I played Joanna's brother-in-law. The grandma died, and the grandpa was like really stoked because then he could go bang whoever he wanted now. Like, that was sort of the premise of the story. And then the children, or the wives of the children rather, like Joanna, were trying to finagle money off of the grandma's will. I think that was sort of our scene when she was trying to blackmail me or something.
That's intense for a porn feature. I guess it's a whole movie.
Very it was very campy and like funny. The last feature I did before that for her was called My Killer Girlfriend. So it was like about internet dating, but the girl ends up being a serial killer. So it was like sort of a campy like slasher type of movie, you know?
That's fun. So do you like get fucked and die in the same movie?
Yep.
That's rad.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. There was a lot of fake blood and it was very messy.
Were you like mid-sex when you got killed?
No, it was like afterwards getting dressed again, and then the girlfriend shows up and we try to book it out of the room and she stabs us.
That's great. So I'm curious, as a actor in porn, how do you feel like you are as an actor?
Well, actually, I was a ballet dancer for most of my younger years, from 14 years, I guess. And I did some drama. So, like, I have a little bit of acting experience, but it's like, most of porn, it's like, it's either over the top, campy, or it's just so bad that it's funny. You know?
Okay. So you don't really try to, like, be a good actor?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, there are scenes, that was more of a generalization of, like, when you see people act in porn.
Yeah, I want to know how you act in porn.
I try to do a good job acting. I don't know if I do the best job, but I try.
Aren't there like porn awards in Vegas? You're in Vegas, right?
That's right. Yeah, I live in Vegas. Yes, the AVN, it's Adult Video News is what AVN stands for.
Okay.
It's sort of, people call it the Oscars of porn. It's every year. It's at the end of January.
And you get to go. Have you ever been nominated?
I'm not personally nominated for anything, but there are some scenes that I'm in, including, I believe, Dirty Grandpa is nominated for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go Dirty Grandpa.
Yeah, it's fun. There's a convention for a few days. It's at the Hard Rock. I mean, it's like a whirlwind because like most of the industry people who don't live in Vegas like come in from usually LA or elsewhere, and they all descend on the Hard Rock, and it's kind of a shit show, but it's still fun.
Right. Is there like a lot of fucking happening at that weekend? Or I wonder if porn stars have so much sex that sometimes they just want to keep their clothes on?
Well, that's the other thing too, is because everybody's in the same place at the same time. A lot of people try to film scenes while everybody's in the same place. Like they'll either shoot at a hotel at the Hard Rock or another hotel or whatever. I probably shouldn't say that because I don't think you're supposed to do that in like the hotels there, but people do it. I've done it. Like after the awards, people party, and like I've definitely been to, although I didn't participate in those particular orgies, but I've been to them after AVN and stuff like that. You
mentioned you did ballet.
Yep.
I mean, is that like a dream to be like a straight male in a ballet?
Yes, it was cool. However, for what it's worth, that was sort of never my cup of tea as far as girls. Like I wasn't necessarily into the girls who like were tiny, wispy little things. Like I usually like a little bit of tits and ass.
Yeah.
Not somebody who's built like a 12-year-old boy.
Right. Well, I'm the girl for you. But you have a girl, right?
I do, yeah. My partner is Maitresse Madeline. She's been in the industry for a while. She's a professional dominatrix, and that's mostly what she shoots is femdom. That's actually how we met. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and she was a full-time director for Kink.com for about 8 years. And I was finishing up my last year of college. I'd been a casual fan of Kink for a long time, and I knew that they were in San Francisco. And so I filled out the model application and sent it in, on their website or whatever. They got back to me a few weeks later, and at the time they were housed in the San Francisco Armory. And yeah, I showed up and I did a model interview, and then they hired me.
They hired you for print, or they hired you for scenes?
It was a scene.
So is it like the sorry, I'm going to ask something inappropriate. Is it like the casting couch scenes when you go in and like the porn scenes and they're like, take your shirt off?
It's totally not inappropriate since we're talking about sex anyways.
I know, but I still feel silly sometimes.
You can't, it's so hard to offend me, especially with stuff like that. So don't worry about it. It's kind of funny because I'd never done porn before. I did kind of kinky stuff in my personal life, but I'd never done porn. And you show up, and part of it is they just want to make sure that you don't have a screw loose. That's part of it, is they just want to talk to you in person because of the internet. You never know. And there have been times where people have showed up on set and been a little bonkers, and they're like, yeah, I don't know if we can shoot this person. So that's part of it. And then they get down sort of to the nitty gritty, as it were. And they're like, okay, take off your pants, get your cock hard. If you've never done that on command in front of total strangers, it's very jarring. You're like, okay, Which, it wasn't like traumatic, obviously. It was fun, but it was definitely like weird concept for me at the time. But now it's so normal to me. Like, I talk about this with a lot of my porn friends. Most of my industry friends, like, I've either had sex with them or their girlfriends, or I've watched them have sex on at least one occasion, So we always joke about that because that's like not usually the case for most civilians. I kind of forget that sometimes, but it's sort of a joke that I talk about sometimes with people.
So she was in your casting, and that's how you met her?
Well, yeah. So after the model interview, I got hired. It was maybe like a couple weeks after the interview that the scene was booked. So they put my information in the pictures, and then she picked it out. You kind of check off a list of like, will you do this? Will you do that? Will you do femdom? Like, would you get pegged with a strap? Like, you check off all the boxes of stuff you'll do and not do. And because most of her content was femdom, she was like, oh, I want to hire that guy. She booked me for the scene, and then initially I kind of got cold feet. I canceled that one. And then another week after that, like, I emailed her booking person again, and I said, I think I'm ready to do it. And so the second time around was when it actually happened. And my first scene was with Madeline. That was the first day we met.
You're lucky you got a second chance. Some people wouldn't give you a second chance.
I know, totally. She talks about that too. She's like, yeah, most of the time when people like cancel, even if it seems like it's for a good reason, I almost never rebook them again.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a brand new model. She's like, if it's somebody I've worked with, whatever, shit happens. But she's like, usually brand new people, if they bail once, I don't give them a second go.
Right. It's funny that you keep calling it a model.
A sort of a sterile term to refer to porn performers. I either say performer or model usually.
Okay. So you play submissive and you play dominant.
Yes. More recently, I've done more in the past, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years. I've done more dominant stuff, which is fun, but it's funny. It's kind of a reversal for me because I would say that like in our relationship, our real life relationship, I would say mostly submissive, but on camera, these days I do more dominant stuff than I do in real life.
Do you still enjoy doing dominant
Oh
porn?
yeah, totally. It's fun. It's a different vibe. It's a different dynamic. It's just, it's kind of a different thing. I'm going to be putting out a website. I'm hoping it'll be up by AVN because of the convention. I can kind of plug it and promo it a little bit.
Right.
So that'll be where a lot of the stuff where it'll be cis women submissive with me, except we're kind of billing it more as like the women are more of like the power bottoms than, submissive. And we're doing these little vignette scenes where they like, the girl was like a executive or something like that. She's like, oh, I fucking order these men around all day. And I just like want to let my hair down and like get fucked. And that's the scene, which was partly Madeline's idea. It's like an idea we came up with together because she had sort of a beef with current companies that have tried to build their stuff as like quote unquote feminist porn or quote unquote porn for women, which I think is meant well. Like I think the intention behind it is good, but then what they're doing is they're putting that into a box where it's like, if you are a feminist or you're a woman, you have to like this type of porn. And we've had many conversations about this, was that you can't just say that, oh, because you're a feminist or because you're a woman, you can't have like a super hardcore, say, for example, like an abduction fantasy or like, super hardcore sex being in a submissive role. That's a totally like legit fantasy and just as valid as whatever else. So like that's kind of was part of the idea behind this particular line of scenes that we're doing.
Cool. You have a shit ton of tattoos.
I do, yeah.
And you look good in them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How did you decide in San Francisco that you were going to send your stuff in for porn?
Well, I went back to school a little bit later. Like I graduated college when I was 30. So it would have been 29, I guess, when I sent in the application. And like I said, I was kind of just a casual fan of kink.com. I knew they were like a Bay Area company, so I was like, oh, this could be cool. I was like, I'll just throw my hat in the ring for this. Like maybe I'll do it. Maybe I won't. Or maybe I'll just do like 1 or 2 scenes and that'll be that. But then obviously it did not turn out that way.
What did you go to college for?
My undergrad degree is in legal studies. I actually went to law school for a year and a half. And so I got about halfway through law school, but then we moved to Vegas last year. So I haven't like transferred all my credits to like finish out here yet. So that's a whole other thing that I have yet to do.
Another inappropriate question. What kind of money do you make making what you do?
Yeah, it depends. Most scenes, for example, if it's like a company hiring you, like a big production company is hiring you, it's typically the newer guys get around $400 or $500 a scene. And then it sort of goes up for like some of the guys who've been around forever and ever and are really well known or whatever. Their rates are more like $700-800. So it's somewhere in that range.
How many days do you work a month?
See, the thing is, mostly I shoot my own content now. So it's
Right.
like,
So you're hoping that comes the back end. That money comes up the backside.
No pun intended, right? Or maybe pun intended. I don't shoot a lot for other companies. I would say I get a handful of scenes for other companies a month. I would say maybe 4 or 5, sometimes more. The rest of the time, I'm either shooting my own content or I'm helping Madeline with her content in some way.
So you guys are trying to build, or not trying to, but you guys are building your own kind of production company.
Yeah. I mean, we have a studio. It's a film studio. It's got 3 sets now, the whole 9. That's where we shoot most of our stuff.
If I come out to Vegas, can I come check out the set?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to be in a scene, but I would like to be there and like kind of see how it works. So let's talk about your relationship for a moment with Madeline, because you have a dom-submissive relationship at home as well.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what that looks like for you guys. Like, if is it just in bed or is it all the time, and what that's like?
Yeah. I think a lot of people have a sort of a picture in their head, who aren't BDSM lifestyle people, who they think that like if you have a DS relationship, that the submissive sleeps in a cage under the stairs and crawls around on all 4s. That's what they think it is. And that type of stuff totally happens in a lot of DS relationships. It's definitely not the norm all the time. I'll put it that way.
But what is yours like?
Yeah, so it sort of ebbs and flows. Madeline's very... Gosh, I don't know how to like describe her in that way. She's one of those people when you walk in a room, she's very stunning, striking physically, and she's also just a very commanding presence. Like, you walk into a room and you can hear her laugh from across a crowded room of people full of, people who are talking, and she just has that kind of commanding presence about her, and she's very much like a top in bed. She likes to fuck people with a big strap on. Like, that's one of her favorite things to do in bed.
These are a few of my favorite things.
Totally. Yeah. And so I guess at home we, in bed it's not like every time we have sex there's tons of bondage involved, or she's flogging me or like hitting me. Although that is in the mix. We definitely have quote unquote vanilla sex at times as well. There's usually something kinky involved when we have sex, but not always. What a lot of people consider kinky, I guess we consider it pretty normal.
What is things like that you consider normal that I would consider kinky?
Yeah, like I said, like pegging. Like she likes to fuck me.
But you think that's normal?
I would say that's probably at least 50 to 60% of our sex is that.
Okay.
She really likes to, like when she gives me a blowjob, if I come in her mouth, she likes to like spit it in my mouth and like make out in it. She likes to do that, and I think that's hot. I guess some people consider that kind of kinky.
I would consider that very kinky.
What else? She does.
Does she make you swallow it?
Yeah, totally.
And you're cool with it?
Yeah, totally.
At first, were you?
I was hesitant more about the taste than anything else at first, because I'd never had cum in my mouth, so I was like, oh, does it taste weird? I don't know, So it was more that than like, oh, I'm putting cum in my mouth. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she does on occasion, she will fist me. It's not something that I can handle all the time, but that's sort of like a special occasion thing. Right.
Like for your birthday or her birthday? Who likes it more?
But I mean, both. There's a very few people that I've met who are like cis women who genuinely like get off on like topping someone, like fucking somebody or like fisting somebody. I'm only one person, so I haven't met every woman ever, but the majority of women that I know don't like that, or if they do like it, it's not something that's like of primary importance in their sex life. But for her, it's like definitely of primary importance in her sex life.
Right. Is it enjoyable for you to get fisted?
Yes. No, I totally love it. I mean, it's intense. It at times can hurt. I mean, she's very skilled at it. She's fisted a lot of vaginas and a lot of buttholes, and she's very good at it. And she knows kind of how to do it and not hurt somebody. That's a very important skill to have if you're going to do that. But yeah, I mean, bodies are bodies, and sometimes that can fucking hurt. But that's part of the enjoyment, is that it's a very intense experience, and you have to kind of breathe into it and like figure out how to do it. And not everybody can do it as a bottom, and that's fine. And I've also like, our dynamic does flip sometimes. Like I've definitely like fisted her vagina before, it's been totally fun. And we do that sometimes too. That's much less often, but it happens.
Do you find it, though, like sexually super arousing to get fisted, or do you just think that you like trying to get yourself through the experience as like a limit pusher? Because I know I feel like I don't know a whole bunch about guys' sex stuff. I mean, I have sex with guys, but not anally, but I feel like most of it for them is like prostate. So that like doesn't really affect your prostate at all. So like kind of what is the pleasure of it? And
wait, I'm sorry, you're saying fisting doesn't affect your prostate?
Or does it? I don't know.
Oh no, it totally does.
Okay, because I felt like to affect the prostate, you're supposed to like use a finger and like twist it.
Yeah, I mean, there's the finger thing, which is a thing, but everybody's sort of different, and I think and everybody's body's a little bit different, but it's I really enjoy it, and you kind of have to. It's not like you just can do that at the drop of a hat.
Right. I actually feel bad asking so many questions about it that I've never heard.
No, I mean, number one, you have to like do anal prep, which is a thing that, if you're going to have anal sex, you've got to know how to do. I learned how to do that like on doing porn. So you got to be able to do that, and your sort of body has to be in a position where you can do that if you're going to have anal sex. And then you definitely have to like, it's something, if you're going to put big things in your butt, whether that's somebody's hand or like a toy or whatever, you have to like warm up to it. You can't just fucking go for it
right
off the bat, But it's kind of the build up that's really enjoyable for me, where it's like 1 finger, 2 fingers, 3, et cetera, and the
getting more intense like every time.
Yeah, getting a little more intense. What I like about it most is just the feeling of being like filled up. That's what I like about it. And sometimes I can't go wrist deep. I've only done that a handful, no pun intended, a handful of times. Yeah, it's fun, and it's I think it's really hot. It's very intense. The orgasms are super intense.
Okay. So it is like awesome.
I would say like getting fucked in my butt is one of my 2 or 3 most favorite sex things to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you come from your butt, it still comes out of your penis?
Yes.
Because I've heard of orgasms where you don't actually like come, but you still have like a body orgasm.
Yeah, that happens. It's funny that you say that. That's actually happened to me a couple of times from putting stuff in my butt or having somebody put something in my butt. Like, where it's not like I don't, there's no cum that comes out of me, but it's sort of like a body orgasm.
Okay. Is it weird to go to the bathroom after?
Usually like about, I'd say within like a half hour or so, you realize like you basically have to push all the lube out of you, out of your butt.
Okay.
And so like the next time you go to the bathroom and it's like all this lube comes out of you, and what we in porn lovingly refer to as butt jelly.
Ew, sorry.
It's basically just lube and whatever water's left in there from the enema, because you have like little blood vessels like in your butt. And so sometimes, especially with something like fisting, like they'll get nicked a little bit. So there'll be like a little bit of pink blood in there.
Yeah.
So that's butt jelly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That is a new term for me. I'm writing it down so I never forget it. Are you submissive like day to day and life, or it's just sex?
It's day to day for sure, but it's I feel like it's much more like subtle, and we kind of make a game out of it. It's sort of like a game where, like, for example, like she'll ask me to like dress up for her and vacuum the stairs, or she'll like ask me to make her a drink, but we kind of turn it into a game, where she's like giving me little tasks to do, and like, she sort of sits back and watches me do it. It's usually subtle things like that. Or like a lot of times, like I refer to her as daddy a lot of times. And that's sort of like my pet name for her. So it's little sort of playful things like that. It's not necessarily that she's like leading me around on a leash at all times.
Does it turn you on in general? Like when she tells you to do something for her, does it kind of excite you to get to do stuff for her? Yeah,
totally. I'm very much like a service bottom in that way. I really like to please the person that I'm with, whether it's like sexually or with something like that. Like, oh, I made you a drink, or I made dinner. I do a lot of our sort of housework, laundry, dishes, cooking, cleaning, that kind of stuff. I do the majority of that, but that's sort of part of that in itself. Just the fact that I do the vast majority of our housework is largely, it's not because she won't do it or can't do it or whatever. It's mostly just because that's part of just part of our dynamic, you know?
Right. I would like to find someone that wants to do those things.
Yeah, I'm sure
I don't
you could
mind
probably
bossing them
find one.
around.
Yeah, totally. Well, I heard a joke one time that porn for straight women was like a dude vacuuming or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody said it better than that, but I thought that was funny.
Yeah, there was like a whole book about it or something. It's like just like a porn book for women, and it's just like pictures of men like cleaning and like doing like changing a diaper or something. So when you first got into kink, you were in San Francisco.
Yes. Yeah, I was born and raised in San Francisco.
I liked it earlier when you said you were a casual fan of kink. When did you find kink in your life, and how was it introduced to you?
Gosh, that's a tough question. I mean, I always sort of liked kinky stuff from a young age. Like I cross-dressed from when I was a young kid. That's actually, I mean, I think that's normal for a lot of kids to do that on some level. But then I realized that once I hit puberty, basically, like I would start to like sexualize that kind of stuff. Whereas like, oh, I really like wearing pretty panties, or like that turns me on. Or a lot of the guys that like where I was friends with when I was young, I had a lot of gay friends too, gay male friends, but a lot of the straight guys that I was friends with, they would, they'd look at, say, like a lingerie catalog, and they'd be like, oh, that chick's hot. And I'd be like, yeah, she's totally hot, but I kind of want to look like her too. You know what I mean? I had those thoughts from a pretty young age. And then I forget how old, I want to say I was probably 12 or 13. I realized that it felt good if I put my finger in my butt when I would masturbate, and like I liked that. And then I realized that was a thing that people did. And then
So you just tried that on yourself without knowing it was a thing?
I mean, you know how it is when you're a young kid and you're kind of exploring your body and you're like, oh.
No, I never stuck a finger in my butt. I didn't
never?
even. I mean, like when I was younger.
Yeah. Okay.
But like before I knew it was a thing, like I wouldn't have thought about. But I guess I have another hole.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. No,
I mean,
I feel like it's very ballsy of you.
Yeah. I don't know how that occurred to me or why I decided to do that, but I did.
Maybe you just like started kind of touching it and it felt good.
Yeah, I think because a lot of times, like, I like to feel the pressure. Like, even if nothing's like in my butt, I like the pressure of it, Yeah. And so I was probably just like feeling down there, and it felt good. And I'm like, oh, what would happen if I did this?
Gotcha. Go you. Go young Will. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then how did that escalate moving forward into a relationship or?
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely Madeline is the first lifestyle relationship, long-term relationship that I've had. So I was married when I was really young. Like I got married when I was 23, which was a terrible idea. But the person that I was married to was I was 22 when we met, and like she was super heteronormative. She wanted to be like a homemaker and do the white picket fence, and I was the breadwinner, and she wanted me to have a very sort of straight-laced kind of 9-to-5 kind of deal. In hindsight, I'm like, why did I ever even try to do that? So like I said, I had these sort of kinky tendencies or kinky thoughts when I was like, hit puberty and into my teenage years and everything. And then when I hit my early 20s, and I kind of tried to put myself in a box that I didn't really fit in. And in my mind, in my 22-year-old mind, I was like, oh yeah, like that's just something that I thought about or that I did when I was younger, and I shouldn't do that. And I try to like repress those kinds of tendencies in myself. Cause like I tried to put that to her at a certain point where it's like, well, I'm into this, can we try that? Whatever. I think I asked her to peg me once, and like she did it sort of begrudgingly, and I could tell she fucking hated it. And I never asked her to do it again. And then I think after, I got divorced when I was 28, but that I sort of relived my early 20s in those days because I was married at such a young age. So then I sort of slutted it up and like dated a bunch of people and like figured out that I like trans women too. Like, and it was a little, I was also like, I know I've talked to a couple of guys about this in particular where, like I grew up in San Francisco, which is a very accepting place of people's identities and sexualities and stuff like that. So and my family in particular they were pretty chill about all that stuff. They didn't give a fuck if you were gay, straight. They didn't care. Nobody cared. That was a good thing. But it was always sort of confusing to me as a teenager because I was like, oh, I really like to put on panties and like cross dress and like be pretty. And I like to get fucked in the ass, but I don't really like guys. When you ask me to sort of identify how to identify, for me, that's kind of a loaded question, because it's like, well, I'm not, and I fooled around with guys when I was like a teenager, and I figured out pretty quickly that wasn't really my cup of tea. It didn't like turn me off. It was just I sort of equate it to like eating saltine crackers. You know what I mean? It's like, it's all right, but it's not, it ain't no New York steak. You know what I mean? And there's just something about feminine energy that I gravitate to, and I kind of need that sexually and personally. After I got divorced and everything, and I realized that I really like trans women too. And so like that was and that was also the second porn scene I ever did, was bottoming to a trans woman. And we still shoot a fair amount of TS scenes. I do personally, and our production company shoots them.
What does TS stand for?
Oh, transsexual.
Okay. So they're like a woman, but they still have their penis?
If they're pre-op, yeah. Or they don't, not all trans women get bottom surgery. Like they don't always. I think that's actually, if I remember correctly, I think statistically that's actually more the exception than the rule.
Right. So that fulfills your kind of like desire for the feminine energy, yet still gives you the anal like joy and like fucking at the same time naturally.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And they usually probably have pretty great tits.
Yeah. True
I
story.
can imagine, because they are made just how they want them the first time.
Yeah. I mean, also not all trans women get implants, like especially in porn. A lot of the trans girls do get their boobs done.
Yeah. Do you like fake boobs, or do you prefer real boobs? What's your feeling on boobs?
Actually, Madeline just got her boobs done a couple of months ago. Doing porn, like I sort of see and feel and touch a lot of different boobs, and I don't really have a preference between natural or surgically enhanced boobs. Like they're all great and they're all fun as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So when you realized or started to understand that you like to be in a submissive role, was that hard as a manly male for your ego to kind of understand and wrap your head around? And was that a struggle for you as part of your sexual journey?
No, I mean, yes and no. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think I've never really been made to feel ashamed of sexuality, much to my parents' credit, despite whatever flaws they had. That was one thing that they were pretty good at, is they never made me feel ashamed or like I shouldn't be a certain way. And I will say that it took me till, after I got divorced and I started dating again, to sort of feel comfortable in my own skin, and as far as my sexuality, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't say that I felt shitty or like ashamed that I liked these things, or that like I wasn't manly enough, or I wasn't, masculine enough, or whatever. But it did take me, and I think porn was a big part of that journey, was just feeling comfortable enough in my own sexuality to be like, this is me, this is what I do, this is what I like, and it doesn't make me any more or less of a, quote unquote man just because my girlfriend fucks me in the ass all the time, or I like sucking dick. That doesn't make me any more or less of a man than anybody else. Right.
I didn't know you like sucking dick. That's new information.
Well, I like sucking girls' dicks.
Oh. Yeah, that's fun. Do they like it? Because I feel like because I've been watching a lot of the L Word. It's a show about lesbians, and it's really good.
Sure.
Just finished it. But, because some of them, not very often, but sometimes they'll try like strap-ons and stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, it is like they'll get like a blowjob with it on and the sex, but, they're not feeling it. But I think part of it is them getting off on their partner getting off, or their partner's enjoyment.
Yeah, it's also sort of it's also a power dynamic thing. Not necessarily, but it can be a power dynamic thing. And I will say this, I've sucked strap-on dick many times, and even though that toy is not physically attached to your body, like there can be a connection there for the person wearing it, that they're like, this is my cock, and you are putting it in your mouth. And even though they can't necessarily have the sensation that like a biological penis would have, there's still there can be a connection there. And I think it can be gratifying to the person doing it as well as the person receiving it with a strap on. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a totally valid, legit thing.
Yeah. It makes sense too, because just watching somebody do something that like turns you on, it can become very exciting. So I guess that would also be similar.
Totally.
Because sometimes, like, if you're thinking about something that you really even like sometimes you can, like, almost come just thinking about something that makes you really hot.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me see what else I would like to talk to you about. What is one of the craziest scenes that you've got to do? Like, what's some of the craziest kink you've done?
Like, craziest how? Like, most spectacular or most, like, intense for me?
Most spectacular.
Well, I've done a lot of gangbangs as well. Like, as a that's kind of how I started, like, topping on camera. As I did a lot of gangbangs. It started because Madeline used to run one of the gangbang sites for kink, and I forget what happened. Like, she couldn't find a fifth because it's usually 5 guys, and she couldn't find a 5th guy or whatever. And she's like, "Do you want to try it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll give it a try." And I found out that I actually really liked it. So yeah, like, gangbangs in general, I really enjoy because they're kind of intense. There's a lot going on, you know. And then actually, I did a femdom scene with Maddo and 2 of our friends, 3 cis women gangbanging me, and I was really femmed up. Like, I got, like, full makeup and everything like that. So that was really fun. That's sort of.
So you were
that
still,
was
like, a man in makeup, or you were dressed as a woman?
Oh no, I was, like, in drag and everything. I think the movie was called Beauty School Dropout, and they were like, we were all beauty school dropouts, and they, like, jumped me into their gang, and the jumping me into their gang was them all fucking me.
Welcome to our gang. Do you like watching yourself in porn videos?
Usually no. It depends. It's always hard to watch myself, although it is a really good way to, like, get better at performing, because you notice all the shit that you shouldn't do on camera, or that looks bad on camera, or because I, like, a lot of the scenes that we shoot now, like, I edit them, so I'm sitting there, like, pouring through this footage that's mostly me, like, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have made that face, or, oh, that sounded stupid when I said that, or, like, you know. So you figure out what works and what doesn't work pretty quickly.
Do you make eye contact with the camera, and then you're watching it, and then you expect making eye contact with yourself?
That's actually a thing that you're never supposed, or, like,
guys don't do.
Like, in the type of porn that we shoot, you're never supposed to make eye contact with the camera.
Okay.
Although that was actually a mistake that I made early on, where I did that, like, just really momentarily. My eyes would meet the camera and I'd be like, oh shit, I shouldn't do that. You know, like.
Because yours are more of, like, a slice of life scene.
They're shot more like cinematic movies than they are like gonzo porn. You know, like, gonzo porn is where there's, like, basically one continuous shot and it's just like a floating camera.
Oh, for some reason I thought gonzo meant like pussy hair shape. Is that a thing?
That's hilarious. I've never heard that.
Okay. Oh, have you ever been recognized in life?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, we got recognized the other night when we went. It's funny, our, like, local restaurant bar place that's a couple miles from our house that we go to all the time. We got recognized in there, which was kind of weird. Normally, like, I'm totally stoked when people, like, recognize me and they just say hello or say, hey, I'm a fan. I'm like, hey, nice to meet you, whatever. I think it's way weirder when people whisper and point, you know?
Right. I like to ask people, too, about their bucket list sexual scenario.
Right.
What is something that you haven't gotten to do yet that you think that you might be interested in trying?
Gosh. I've been so fortunate. I've got to try so much. I really like female ejaculation. Like, I think it's really hot when girls squirt.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to, like, basically, like, a reverse bukkake scene where, like, a bunch of girls who can squirt really good. I should say who can squirt really well. I'm, like, correcting my own grammar.
There's nothing hotter than a smart porn star.
Having all the girls, like, squirt on me at the same time, that would be super hot.
That's wild. That would be really interesting. Have you ever drank squirt?
Yeah. Pro tip, it's usually pee. Like, in porn, I'm saying.
Okay.
It's pretty rare that girls can squirt to begin with. I think it's even more rare that they can squirt to the degree that it's, like, visually spectacular on camera, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's so hot. It's so cool. Most of the time, like, when you see a squirting scene in porn, it's the girl just slams a bunch of water and usually, like, Gatorade or, like, Pedialyte. And so her pee's, like, really clear. So that because she's super hydrated. Yeah, that's usually what it is. And she just pees.
Wow. Secrets behind the scene. Okay. I want to thank you so much for taking the time and coming to talk to me and to my listeners and bringing your sex positivity, your openness to share your experiences. I think we're really beautiful and different than a lot of the people I've had on. So I really want to thank you for being that, or doing that.
Oh, thanks a lot. It was fun talking to you. And
Good.
I hope that everybody enjoys the episode.
Yeah, and I hope that more people will be comfortable understanding that it is okay and rad if you like whatever you like, and that there shouldn't be any judgment around it, because not everyone grew up in San Francisco. I think that there is a lot of judgment around a lot of people and shame that I've been learning about that people go through, and it's really awesome that you didn't have to go through that stuff. I mean, you went through a not exciting marriage where you had to relearn yourself. Hopefully that will touch some people. Yeah,
I hope so. I mean, I've been very lucky that I have been exposed to things that a lot of people haven't, and as long as everybody does things safely and consensually, I think it's great, and I don't think that there should be shame around sex and sexuality in general. I think that as long as everybody's consenting adults, there's really not much you can do that should be shamed or people made to feel bad about.
It's going to be in the show notes, but I'd like for you to tell us anything, your Instagram or wherever people can find you.
My Instagram is @WXHX. My Twitter is @WillHavocXXX. And then my website that is yet to be launched, it's going to be called fetishx.com.
Well, I hope everyone comes and supports you and checks you out from this podcast. Listeners who go check them out. Best of luck with your website and all the rad stuff that you have coming up, and be in touch with me.
All right. Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Yes. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
He's hot. He's smart. He's in. I'd let him in. You don't care. But you care about checking out his porn. I know you do. It's okay to admit it. Porn is cool if used properly. Okay, anyway, please check him out. Follow his Instagram, WXHX, on Twitter. He is Will Havoc XXX, and any other of his stuff will be in the show notes down below. I'm also on another podcast this week. I am on a show called Your Brain on Facts. So check that out. I'm on the 50th episode. Sigmund Freud is full of shit, is what it's called. It was super fun. So if you need more of my voice, go check that out, My Brain on Facts. Please don't forget to rate and subscribe us, me, Miranda, at Interesting Sex, wherever you're listening to your podcast. If you think you have interesting sex, interestingsexpodcast@gmail.com, or go to interestingsexpodcast.com, where I also have things that you can buy, like gifts and stuff. So that's fun. Gifts for yourself, gifts for other people. And let's please not forget that one of the worst things in the world is human trafficking, especially for children. So let's take a moment to appreciate our lives, but also to help and remember that 10% of anything that this podcast will receive profit-wise will go to help stop sex trafficking. Thank you guys for your support and for listening. I love having you here. You know this, man. And I can't wait to see you next week to see what the pussy drags in. See you next Tuesday. Thank you to the band 41 for creating this awesome song that I fucking love.
Well, it's a doobity-doo. Yes, it's a doobity-doo. Well, it's a doobity-doo. Yes, it's a doobity-doo. I mean a doobie-doobie-doobie-doobie-doobie-doo. Yeah!